Good, good. They said it's going to rain this week, but I don't think it is. I think they missed the forecast. And we'll be bush hogging come Saturday, I believe. It is good to see you. Don't forget, we have some youth that are headed out for their escape room on June 1st. And then on June 2nd, the WMS are going to meet this month. And so I think they couldn't last month as a result of the parking lot. I think they got a little project they're going to put together. And then June 8th, not this Sunday, next Sunday, we will have the beach trip meeting right after the morning service. And so if you've never been on that beach trip before, I'm going to encourage you to come. We'll have all the pricing laid out. And so we've done a few things different this year. And so actually it's a little bit cheaper than even last year, even though we're running probably more events actually. So, make sure you're there for that meeting. If not, you can see me about that. And so June 8th is that beach trip meeting right after the morning service. And then we do have a deacons meeting. I did forget to put something on here on, oh no, we're good. So June, July, August, we do not have any breakfast. I forgot to write that on there. So don't forget, June, July, August, we do not have the breakfast. And so we'll decide where we're going to go eat after that morning service there. The deacons are proposing, they'll have to bring it before a vote when we have something else we have to vote on too. Last summer, we did a one service in the morning, and they want to make a motion that we just do the month of July. We'll do just the morning service for the month of July. They're going to present this in a meeting. You guys will obviously vote on that, and so I'll let you know more details. And we have one more thing that we're having to repair. So that will be just the month of July that you'll be voting for there. Just having one service, and that'd be the morning service there. I think it helps on all the trips and vacations and everything, and so everything will still be online though. We'll have Father's Day on June 15th, and then no evening service, and then our Vacation Bible School will be following that week. And so I almost laughed out loud when we were talking about the QR codes and stuff like that. And some of you, I could see somebody pulling out their flip phone trying to take a picture of the QR code, and so I did laugh. But QR codes, if you need some help with that, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that will be more than willing to help you and take a picture of that, sign up through that. And so we'll have them stationed there at the entrance on Sunday morning there to help you. And so it is communion this month. Is there any other stuff? Baby lotion is needed for the family room if you would like to do that. They were there last night. And then I believe that's it. So any other announcements that I need to make? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's in October. I believe it's the 12th, I believe. We'll be at Southwest Park. We'll do it back in the fall. Yeah, praying for the same weather we had last time, right? I mean, that was the best day. So, yeah, that's going to be in October. Who else? Okay. All right. Yeah. That's excellent. That's excellent. That is excellent. As we go into this prayer request, that's a praise. Donnie Hodges got a good friend that's having some surgeries done on his head, and they did find cancer, and so they've already gone quite a bit. Now they're having to go into the lymph nodes, and so his name is Jack, and so we're going to pray for Jack this morning, and so he's going to find out the surgery is very soon. Bill Taylor, as of yesterday, is still in the hospital. And so what happened is his stomach still has not woke up yet. And so they believe partially. So what they're going to do today is go in and do a colonoscopy. and they're going to determine to make sure there's no blockages or anything like that. They're just, and they feel like he is improving, and so he's not walking much. They're doing kind of the rehab in bed, but he's not really putting a lot of pressure. Of course, there's always that concern for scar tissue and stuff like that. Many of you that's had that surgery, and so I asked Gail. I said, well, obviously he's going to be very much against going in because he had another knee replacement and a shoulder surgery, and the doctor said no more surgeries after this. So he will not be able to do any more knee replacements or shoulder surgery, and so that was the worst knee. But he can't lift his arm, so maybe there'll be another option. But it's just Dr. Norris said that they're just too concerned about what the anesthesia did to him to go through this again. So just pray for him and that he'd be able to get out of the hospital. Nathan Warden is in surgery right now. I was in Kernersville this morning, and so headed back, and they texted just a few minutes ago and that he had just started his surgery, and so we'll have a time of prayer for him and his back surgery. If you haven't seen that boy walk, I mean, he's crooked now when he walks, and so he's ready to get this done. And so it's this L5, and they're going to do, I believe, a rod in there. And doctor said pretty simple surgery. It's just grown like 3 centimeters in just a matter of just a few months, where it's the bulge in it has bulging. So it's good to see Justin Davis with us on Sunday morning and praying for that family. And he said he's just in a tremendous amount of pain and just going through all the broken bones that are healing. There's broken bones that they're not even going to put cast on. They're going to let joints fuse back together. And so just pray for the Holiday family as they're looking after him and taking care of him. And also Kevin Kivett and his report. I don't know if you heard on Wednesday night that they gave him just a few months to live. And 57, is that right, Sheila? 57 years old. And so he found cancer, and, he's the epitome of health, believe it or not. And so I just pray for this family and the Kivett family as, they've already lost one, Jerry's already lost one son. So just pray for them. And so as this family goes through these things, continue to lift up Mary Ellen Thompson, and also Bob Lucas has just left, or he's at urgent care, right? Right. And so he's on a second round of medicine. He's had bronchitis that he's been fighting now for some time, and so he's going through that there. And so, and also pray for Charles Ruth, and they have determined that there is cancer in his lung, and so. And Judy and Charles will keep us informed about the next steps and what they're planning on doing there. And so, unless you guys, y'all are still seeing oncologists and all that, right? So, okay. Okay. All right. And also continue to pray for Zeke Duncan as he's traveling. He's making his way back east now, and so he's working. He's been out west working and welding, and so just pray for his safety. He's got to experience the road quite a bit. Yes, ma'am. Awesome. It's funny you say that, because Nathan said that one of the fellow teachers has had the same back surgery, and they said it didn't help him any. And he was like, well, why am I going through this then? And I said, well, there's a chance it might too. I said, so. Chronic pain is bad, isn't it? All right. Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Bruce, would you pray for these prayer requests and lifting up Nathan right now as he's in surgery, please? Terry Crisco? Yeah, Terry Crisco. All right. And also Leon Smith, too, Regina's brother. He was here at church Sunday. It was good to see him. So, Bruce?
Chris talking about that QR code and stuff like that. I have to help my mama with her phone a little bit. And I said, Mom, it ain't that hard. She said, the reason it's so hard, she said, I don't want to know how to do that stuff. I don't care nothing about it. So that's, a lot of old people, they not dumb. They don't want to know. It's like, I don't care about that stuff. So I think that's where she, anyway, y'all get your blue books out. Turn to page number 19. We're going to sing all three verses of In the Garden. So sweet, the birds they're singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing, and he walks with me and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own,
and the joy we share as we tarry there. None other has ever known.
Amen. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Miss Pat. All right, so in transitioning to our next series, we are going to talk about something that I've been wanting to discuss, and it's only going to take me maybe one sermon, and if I don't talk fast, then it'll take me two, all right? So if I talk fast, listen fast, but and so I'll have something Sunday morning and then next Wednesday. So we're going to talk about something that affects everybody in here, and some of you are like, well, not me, I'm retired, but it doesn't matter at what age you're at, that people experience burnout in their life, right? And it's a very serious thing when you are burnt out. And how is it that when Christians get burnout, what do they experience? But not only this, is there a way to come out of it, you know? And the answer is yes. And the Bible is very specific on how to renew your spirit. And so when I say burnout, some of you guys are thinking, yeah, I had that Nova that did great burnouts, right, in 1956. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you simply run out of gas, all right, when your body is done, when you don't have anything in you. Here's the definition, I guess one of them is the reduction of fuel or substance, where you have no more combustion anymore in your life, where you find yourself even difficult to get out of bed. Now, that just is not work-related. That's relationship-related. That's just life-related, where you don't even want to get out of the bed anymore just because you don't have anything to do it. It's physical, but it's also mental. I've asked you this question before, I think recently, is what do you think is worse? Being mentally exhausted or physically exhausted? If you have worked out in 95-degree weather and done construction or whatever, or in your yard, and you come in, you are completely exhausted. Or if you sat in an office all day and looked at a computer screen or ran numbers, and you come in and mentally exhausted. To be honest with you, after experiencing both, I would say mental, because you can't even form sentences. You know, when you're physically exhausted, you at least can still talk and still think. But the physical symptoms of this sometimes is just being tired. And by the way, have you ever been so tired you couldn't go to sleep? Yeah. You experience the change in appetite. Sometimes people lose weight, sometimes people gain weight. And then you start dealing with the headaches because your brain won't shut off. And not only that, you start dealing with the muscle pain, the back pain. You start dealing with the shortness of breath. You start having tightening in the chest. And then your sugar changes. There's so many different things when it comes to burnout in your life. Also, the emotional side of it is the lack of motivation. You just do not want to do anything. And you know what? Immediately your grandkids or kids will say, Mom, Dad, go to the doctor. You know, but it's not necessarily a doctor-related thing. And so because they're going to probably throw a lot of medicine at you, that you're like is going to have this other side effects. Self-doubt, failure of loneliness even. And by the way, the loneliness is coming because you don't want to be around anybody. You know, you get to the point where you just want to be left alone. But overall, you're just dissatisfied with life. I have probably once or twice a year that I have people come in and they were ready to take their life. They're done with living, and they've got to the point where they don't see a point in living. By the way, it doesn't matter the age. It could be a 12-year-old, and it can be a 40-year-old or even a 70-year-old where they reach the point where they take their life. And we see that during COVID, I told you, the number one people that took their life was 60 and above. And and especially those in nursing homes or where the family was trying to do right by them and not give anything to their parents, but it ended up being so lonely. Some of the behavioral things when you see somebody dealing with burnout is that they stop talking to people, they isolate themselves, and they stop performing their responsibilities, and then also anger. They're just angry at everything. And then you ask them why are they so angry, and they say, I don't know, I'm just angry. I'm just angry. It's because they've lost their zeal. They've lost their spirit about them. And you're like, that person used to have a really sweet spirit. What happened to them? Well, sometimes they're just completely burnt out at whatever they're doing. And so burnout, and this was really big during COVID, and it still is now. So I was in the hospital probably 3 months ago when I had this conversation, and I generally try to, just speak to the nurses, and I'll thank them for what they're doing, and how are you doing? And they're very honest. Nurses are very honest people, and they'll tell you, I'm not doing good. And so, in fact, the lady on the 5th floor at Cone, she said, I will be number 6 nurse that left this month. And she said, we're tired. We're done. We don't have anything left in us because there's not enough people working. And so it's putting all these hours back on them. They said during the registered nurses, about 100,000 during COVID left the workforce, just in nurses alone. That wasn't including the doctors. And by the way, many of these doctors still had their payment from school that they were still trying to make, but it didn't matter because they didn't have anything left in them. 2 years past the COVID outbreak, we see that 610,338 nurses alone put their intent to leave. 610,000 professional healthcare workers said, I'm putting in my intent to leave. And some of them said the only reason that they haven't just left right then was because they were carrying the insurance for the house. For the family, and they were, making house payments, and they were like, but they were going to work burnt out. Now, how do you like that person that's taking care of you and they're not really into their job? That's, this is when mistakes are made and then they get reprimanded. They lose their license. It's because they don't have anything left to give. And so they leave because of burnout or stress, or even take the early retirement. By the way, do we see this in the teacher field now? Where when they get their 30 years, they're done. I don't care what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do that anymore. It's because of that has changed so much, and where you may not have the support of the administration, but you definitely don't have the support of the parents, and the kids are having to be catered to so much, and you got to do this, and it's with the testing that's going on now, and so much is put on that. Now, what is the difference between stress and burnout? They do correlate, all right? I'm getting to my scripture in just a little bit. Hold on, give me a second. And so the stress is simply this, is that I have too much on my plate. We've all been there, right? That if you keep a lot on your plate for any length of time, is that too much work, too much responsibility, or too many hours that you spend working? Eventually, it will lead to burnout. It will lead to the part where I don't have anything left inside of me to give. And by the way, a lot of pastoral conferences, they hit on this very subject because some of the very first people to leave after burnout are pastors and people that work in the church. And you're like, you're doing a good thing, right? And so, by the way, there's a lot of adultery, and understand what I'm saying, committed by pastors, and it has nothing to do with them going off and sleeping with somebody else. It has to do with their cheating on their families with the church. You understand, where that is their priority, and I call that spiritual adultery, so to speak, because there's always somebody needing something every time you turn around. And so I have had people not like it or whatever, but after 9 o'clock, my phone's off. Like, I'll turn it on silent, but I'll respond to you at 2 or 3 when I open my phone at 2 or 3. They don't really like that phone call, but I will respond then. But at some point, that is when I cut it off. I'll silence it at that point. It's because that's where I'm done. I don't have anything left in the tank. And so burnout is different than stress. Stress is when I have too much on my plate. And by the way, we all take on more. We say yes a lot where we probably shouldn't say yes. And so I'm preaching to the choir here, okay? But when you deal with stress long enough, burnout then occurs, where you don't have it. You don't feel like doing anything. And so that's what occurs eventually. And some of you left your job because of burnout. You're sitting in here and you're a testimony of, yes, I just simply did not have anything left in the tank, and I could retire, and I took the retirement, not because I didn't like my job, not because I didn't want to stay there, but I'm simply just burnt out. I didn't have anything else to give to them. And so there's different stages to burnout before I get into talking about our person a day and then getting into the renewing of the spirit, even if I get there. But there's different stages of marriage, right? You know, we in our marriage counseling, we call it fall. We call it winter, spring, and summer. So the fall is kind of like your honeymoon stage, and then your winter time, after you're through that, then you're like, ooh, I don't even like you anymore. What was I thinking, right? And so if you make it through the winter, spring's coming, and then summertime is generally the kids are out of the house, and you really enjoy your time together. But the honeymoon phase of the burnout is kind of the start of it. It's when you have some energy and you're able to kind of push through. Maybe it's that new job that you're tackling, and it comes with new tasks. And often these people are very productive, but at some point they keep taking on and taking on and taking on. But yet they're kind of a low person on the totem pole, so they keep doing this. And then the second phase is like the onset of stress phase. Eventually, that honeymoon, it's like in marriage, the honeymoon phase phases out, right? So for some people, it doesn't take but a few weeks, but for some people, it takes 3 years maybe before that honeymoon phase phases out. The same way, when you're dealing with stress on and on and on, eventually you begin to phase out. You begin to get rid of the honeymoon, and the things that were once exciting are no longer exciting. By the way, I will tell you this, some of the elder teachers that have been teaching for 30, 35 years, and you got young teachers coming in, I never let them two get together. I was like, do not go talk to this person, because they're going to really discourage you I was like, don't talk to them. Go talk to somebody that's only been doing it for 5 or 6 years, right? They're still in that honeymoon phase, I guess. And so what happens is, at this point, you start seeing your physical life change, and you start seeing your mental capacity change. And so you start to lose focus easily, and you start becoming less productive than what you have. In fact, even the boss man will say, come on, let's pick it up. What are you doing? Like, this is, you're kind of changing, and you're not recognizing, I know I need to pick it up. I just can't keep up. And then the third is the chronic stress phase. And you reach a point where it's chronically, you're just stressed out all the time. The pressure keeps mounting, and you're not completing the work on time. You're finding yourself, how many times that people start being late for work? And you're like, you never used to be late for work. These are signs that somebody is burning out. And so something needs to happen. And by the way, you start socially withdrawing from people around you. You know, you used to go to lunch with these people, and now you're like, I'm just going to sit in my cubicle and eat right here. I'm going to go to my car, be by myself. And you start distancing yourself, and the only time you find yourself talking to the people around you is when you have to. And by the way, at this stage, you start bringing this stuff home. Right? When you walk in the door, you start complaining to your spouse or to your family about this and that and the other. And then finally somebody speaks up and goes, you're not happy? You not like your job? Well, yeah. But what happens is you've allowed the stress to keep building up. And then the burnout phase. The burnout phase is when you've kind of reached your limit and you just no longer function the way that you used to. The problems at work now really start increasing at home, and you're bringing this stuff home. You start feeling numb to things. You really don't care if you're doing a good job or not. You're just like, it's 8 o'clock. I can't wait till 5 o'clock gets here because I don't care anymore. I have reached that point. And so friends and family notice the change in you, and then this is the Monday morning when you wake up and you dread Monday morning, and all the way to Friday that you're dreading, I just cannot wait to get out of here. And then the fifth phase, the last phase, and we'll look at the passage, is the habitual burnout phase, is where this becomes your life every single day. And then we get to leading to anxiety, and depression is a whole nother issue there, where you cannot get out of it because maybe you have acquired so much debt that you cannot leave, or maybe there's not another opening in your field. Your mental, your physical, and generally, by the way, people die at this point. They die an earlier death. Now, I understand our days have been measured out. I understand all that. But the results of burnout affects our entire life, where we literally die earlier than what we probably could have if we would have not got to this point in our life. And so your whole life is at jeopardy here. And so in Exodus chapter 18, if you have your iPad or Bible or whatever you want to open it, Exodus chapter 18. And so who was the writer of the first 5 books of the Bible? All right. So let's talk about a man named Moses. And I could have gone so much further with this, but I backed off, and I'm just going to cover it because I knew I wouldn't have enough time to do everything I wanted. But I will bring it out, not on slide-wise, but just by conversation. And this may be some homework for you tonight when you get home. But in Exodus chapter 18, beginning in verse 13, now it is believed to be that once the children of Israel came out of Egypt, he could have been leading 1 million people, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but leading any amount of people is difficult. If you had a business and you had 12 employees, that was a big responsibility, right? To keep work coming in and to make sure everybody got paid and take care of the family, and then you meet the needs and you're letting people off of work and all this. Could you imagine 1 million people? Well, when Moses agreed to do this, guess what? He said, okay. No, he really didn't, did he? He was like, I can't do that. I'm not equipped for that. So he already felt under-equipped. And so the very first thing that we have to look at is I believe Moses tried to do some of this of his own ability. And I think this was one of the reasons that Moses began to burn out to begin with. And so he has all this responsibility. And here is an interesting situation, is Moses didn't understand delegating. Right? He didn't delegate well because God didn't go to a bunch of leaders. God went to Moses. And he said, Moses, this is what I want you to do. And so Moses is running the different activities, and he's taking care of people, and he's trying to do this, and he doesn't sleep because hey, by the way, he's doing a good thing, is he not? He's leading God's people. He got them out of Egypt, and he's delivering them. I mean, the sea opened up, and they walked. He's doing a good thing. Leave him alone. He's fine. But he wasn't fine. He wasn't fine. Moses was under a tremendous amount of stress. In fact, people started recognizing. He was like in stage 3, where others began to recognize Moses was dealing with some problems. And it came about the next day that Moses sat and he judged the people, and the people stood before Moses from the morning until the evening. Now, if you've ever done any counseling whatsoever, if you have your degree in that and you have sat there, that is a stressful thing when you are listening, you're giving advice. Now, why is it that Moses was chosen to judge the children of Israel? Because he wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. If there was anybody that knew the law of God and could judge the people, it was Moses. So Moses felt like, I'm it. This is who I am. This is my job. This is a good thing. I am leading God's children. If there was any generation on the planet more important at that time, it was the people he was in charge of, and he knew God's law, and he's leading these people. And it says from morning until evening. It doesn't say only 2 days a week, does it? It doesn't say 3 days a week. I think he did it every day but the Sabbath day. Every day. So here's the thing. Do you think Moses woke up and said, yes, another day of lines and lines of people that I get to speak to? How long did it start to take before Moses began to be like, this is not good? How many times did he wake up and say, not again? I mean, it's hard enough to listen to complaining after just a few times. But what if you heard about complaints? They took my chicken and they did this, and no, you did this. And he's trying to decipher. Remember? If you remember the story, right after God gave him the wisdom, right? after God gave Solomon the wisdom. You remember the story there that the two women that claimed to have the child, that was the very first incident where one woman claimed to have a child, the other woman claimed to have the child, and Solomon said, cut it in half, and the real mother said, no, keep the child. That's how he knew. That was just one incident where two women were complaining, and, Solomon couldn't go, can we get the DNA test, It'll be back in 5 days. We'll make a judgment. And so this is just one case, but how many people like, you took this and you did this? Well, they actually pushed over my wife and we lost the baby. Oh, now we got to send you out of the city. We got to kill you for this. I mean, he was constantly judging and listening to complaint after complaint. And he is sitting there, and as far as he can see, there is a line of people that he is judging every day but the Sabbath. He got sick of seeing people, By the way, do you think the people got tired of standing there from morning till evening? This is DMV on steroids, right? That's what it is. And so he's trying to take care. But all in all, guess what? It's a good thing. This is what God had called him to do. It's a good thing. Moses, suck it up, buttercup. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and God's called you to do it, so do it. And so there was a man there, and it was Moses' father-in-law. His name was Jethro. And he's doing this good thing, and Jethro came in from out of town, and he saw all that Moses was doing. Jethro sat back and he watched, and he's shaking his head going, this is not good. This is not good. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't know about you, but it's really neat when you give advice to somebody and they're like, that's amazing, right? Oh, that helped me so much. And you're like, it really was simple. Proverbs said this. But sometimes we can't see in our own bubble. Does that make sense, everybody? That we can see other people's problems, but we can't see inside of our own bubble. Well, Jethro is like, Moses, I'm looking into your bubble, and there's getting ready to be some problems. And he says, I'm watching all that you're doing for the people. By the way, is that not good? For the people. Moses wasn't self-serving here. He was doing a good thing. I can't tell you how I want to make this our imperative. He is doing it for somebody else. He is doing God's work. And he says, what is the thing that you're doing for the people? And Moses is like, what do you mean? Hold on. Let me come back to that question. I got this to judge. Hold on one second. You can see him. I can't even stop to talk to you right now. What are you doing? Why do you alone sit as judge and all the people stand before you until morning, until evening? What are you doing? Moses, this isn't good. I'm watching you, and I'm watching you handle the problems. And by the way, you're doing a good job. You're doing God's work. You're being self-serving. You're giving it all that you have. God has given you this wisdom through his word. The way you handled that stolen chicken incident was awesome. Good job. He said, but there's a problem. I see a burnout coming. Look at what he says in verse 14. Now, when Moses' father-in-law saw that, let's see, 15. Did I go back here? 15. Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me and inquire of God. What are you doing? 14. Why do you stand and why do you do all this judging? Why are you doing all this? And listen to his answer. Because the people are coming to me. Pretty simple. You know what he's saying? I'm all they got. There is nobody else. They're coming to me. Am I going to turn them away? By the way, do you feel that way when people come to you and then people come to you and then people come to you and they keep asking? By the way, it could be family. It could be your employees, employer. They keep coming, they keep asking, and they keep asking, and you feel that obligation. Yes, okay, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, because the people come to me. And let's throw something spiritual in there. They're inquiring of God, right? I mean, we're doing a good thing here, Moses. Jethro, I'm doing a good thing. I'm a good leader. Verse 16, when they have a dispute, it comes to me, and I have to do the judging. Someone and his neighbor, and I have to tell them, thus saith the Lord. And I have to explain the laws of God. And I wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. I know the Word of God. I can simply just tell them, this is what God says. I'm training people in God's law. I can't tell you how good of a thing that we're doing here. In fact, they understanding the Word of God. This is a good thing, Jethro. And then the wise father-in-law spoke up and said, it's not good. It's not good. Wow. Okay, how many of you would have sided with Moses? Okay, he's leading a million people. He's doing God's work. He's doing God's bidding. He's leading God's people, and then he's judging the matters. He's giving them God's word when they inquire about what God says, and Jethro says, it's not good. You know, Moses had to be, can I not ever please you? Right? I mean, I already hear enough complaining and belly aching from these people. Can you at least give me an attaboy? Please? It's not good. Look, Moses, here's the problem. I'm looking in your bubble, and you can't see in your bubble. But I'm telling you, your bubble is getting ready to pop. You're burning out. And then he says, you will wear yourself out. But not only will he wear himself out, who else is he going to wear out? The people. The people. He said, it's too big. It's too much. And you cannot do it alone. Now, I think this is interesting. When God appeared to Moses at the burning bush, who else did God appear to? No one, right? It was just Moses. I think it's interesting that God didn't appear to Moses and say, son, when we met at the burning bush that day and I told you to go into Egypt and I told you to lead the children out, did I tell you to do that? Yes, God, you told me to do that. Did I tell you to judge the people and to take care of them? Yes. But God didn't appear to him. God didn't say, Moses, you can't keep sustaining life like this. You're wearing my people out. You're wearing yourself out. You're going to cut your life short. Why didn't God appear to Moses? That's a good question, isn't it? If God thought enough to appear to him before a burning bush, then why didn't he stop Moses? And this just really jumped out at me when I was putting this together. It's because sometimes God's going to speak to you in that still small voice or through his word, and sometimes he's going to send somebody else into your life to speak. Now I want to tell you this. I dare say that Moses, when Jethro spoke, said, you've lost your mind. You're crazy. Absolutely not. God spoke to me, Jethro. And this is what he told me to do. He didn't tell anybody else to do this. He told me to do this. But you know what? Jethro was God's voice on behalf of God. And you know what? Sometimes that the Lord will lay something on your heart to tell somebody else, and God said through you. And I don't know how many times God has used you in this manner, but it is an amazing thing. And it doesn't come from you. It's not the wisdom of you. It is the wisdom of God. And it's as if God is speaking directly through you. And I have had story after story where somebody has walked up and said, hey, I felt impressed with the Lord to say this to you. Perfect timing. And also, the really cool ones is when they have no idea that I've been praying about something, and they'll say something, and they'll speak something, and I'm like, that's my answer. You don't ever know. But Jethro was the voice of God. It wasn't to protect his son-in-law. It wasn't to keep all these other crazy people away. It was, I'm looking out for you. He said, you can't do it. I'm looking out for the people. Because what did he see? He saw a line of people standing out in the sun, and what are they doing? So hot. Would you just hurry up? Right? Would you just please? They were wore out. By the time they got to him and they stood in line all day. Honestly, then they were angry. They were burning out. We go down to verse 21. He says, this is what you're going to do. He said, you shall select out of all the people able men who fear God, men of truth, who hate dishonest gain. You shall place these over them as leaders, thousands and hundreds and fifties of tens. And now we get to how do you keep from burning out? In this particular case, you delegate, Moses, right? You start selecting people that fear God, that are going to handle it right. And he says it's going to help you. You're not going to necessarily judge the people. You're going to bring judges in, and they're going to establish up instead of one long line. Now we have multiple judges, and we have all these short lines. Their problems are being handled. You're not burning out, and guess what? Everybody is participating, and everybody is serving. And then, in fact, Moses says this, but what if it's a problem that they can't handle? And he says, well, that's why you're walking up and down the line. And then they bring that matter before you, and you handle that problem. That's how he finishes it up. By the way, did Moses always handle this delegation properly or burnout? No. By the way, how many times did Moses get angry? We see him getting angry with Pharaoh. We see him when he left Pharaoh. What did he do that caused him not to go into the promised land? He struck the rock instead of speaking to it. You know what I believe that came from? Simply just burnt out. How many times did he scream at the people? You can't ever be pleased. By the way, do you remember what he did when he came down from getting the 10 Commandments and he saw them worshiping with this idol? He melted it down and made 3,000 of them drink the residue from that golden calf. He had had all he could stand. Moses understood the stress and how it was continuous. The fact that he had to fight this stress because of burnout, and it affected Moses' spirit about him. In this particular situation, it took all this pressure. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think Moses would have lived much past this, if not. Now, I know God would have intervened. So I'm not going to be able to get into renewing your spirit, but next time we talk, we're going to talk about the 10 ways of renewing your spirit. I mean, how do I get whole again? How do I take a step away and breathe again? And by the way, you'll see that a lot of people depend on their own. Even in pastoring, they take a church because they have the talent. They're hired because they have the talent or ability, but yet they soon burn out because of who they're relying on. And so we're going to talk about how do you renew your spirit. And then we're going to talk about the fact of what are the happiest countries in the world. And it's going to surprise you where America lands. By the way, that just came out. where America lands versus all these others because of stress and burnout. Father, we love you today. We thank you for, as we look into this passage, at any point in our life, we can take on more than we're supposed to simply because, and it can be all under the name of it was a good thing that we're doing this or whatever. Lord, please help us to consider the life of Moses, and also as you send people into our lives to encourage us and to help us and to learn that we're